Hey everybody, Rick Mount with the Paradigm Mortgage Group. Hey, today's quick facts, we're going to talk about two tools that we use to help people that are buying a new home manage their cost of getting into that new home. There's some pretty significant costs when buying a new home, your down payment, your closing costs, and other such items like that. We have some great tools that we can help eliminate a lot of these costs, or if nothing else, reduce them. So let me pull up the document real quick, and we're going to talk about gift funds and seller concessions. One of the biggest challenges that we face in today's climate is the wannabe buyers out there raising enough capital to be able to come up with their down payment plus their closing costs. I'm going to walk you through briefly here about gift funds and some other things that we use. If you notice here, gift funds are typically funds donated by a family member or a fiance that can be used for down payment as well as other closing costs. The amount of the gift funds that can be applied vary depending on the type of loan, and we'll get into that in a bit. Conventional loans typically require 5% of the funds come from the borrower directly before additional funds can be applied by a family member or fiance. FHA and VA, however, will allow 100% of the funds needed to close, including the down payment, to be a gift. So the borrower in those circumstances would not need any of their own funds. Another tool that we use is seller concessions. Seller concessions are simply a seller willing to credit the buyer a certain amount towards their closing costs or other costs associated with the purchase. And we'll get into the dollar amounts that they can contribute in a second. But these concessions typically can't be used for down payment, but can be used for their closing costs and all the other things that are associated with buying a new home. I've prepared a chart for you down here to give you an idea of how they differ from conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, and then the Fannie Mae Home Path product, and then the FHA Home Path or FHA product here. So typically, conventional loans require that 5% down payment is the minimum down payment. There are new programs out there that if you have great credit and meet all the other requirements, we can get you in with as little as 3% down on a conventional program, but we can talk about that more later. But typically 5% is the typical requirement, and this 5% needs to come from the borrower directly before any other gift funds can be applied. Seller contributions, like we said before, can't be used for down payment, but can be used to help absorb or eliminate a lot of the closing costs. And under conventional guidelines, a seller can contribute as little as 3% and as much as 9% of the purchase price towards these concessions, depending on what loan to value the purchase price is at. So if you're greater than a 90% loan to value, meaning you're putting less than 10% or less down, the seller can contribute up to 3%. If you're putting 25% down or less, the seller can contribute up to 6%, and if you're putting more than 25% down, the seller can contribute up to 9% of the purchase price back towards your acquisition costs. Investment properties, non-owner occupied properties, are capped at a 2% maximum contribution. And a little side note down here, we talked a little bit about that 3% down program. Home Path is another product that's offered by Fannie Mae and is used to help liquidate the Fannie Mae REO property out there, or the foreclosure. So it can be used if you're buying a Fannie Mae owned home. Minimum down payment's 3%, all of which can be gifted, so there's no minimum funds required by the borrower. They can receive a 100% gift from a family member, and the max seller contribution in the Home Path program is 3.5%. So if they're buying a Fannie Mae owned home, this is a great tool to get them in with very little money out of their pocket. FHA is another great option and has a lot of flexibility as it relates there. Down payment, minimum down payment is 3.5%, and the minimum funds required from the borrower are 0. Again, remember, all of the gift funds and the seller concessions, no money is required from the borrower to close. The maximum seller contribution for FHA is 6%. So in this scenario, a seller can contribute up to 6% towards their closing costs. Well, these are great tools that we use every day to help buyers control their costs of getting into a new home. So many times buyers may have all the credit and the income needed, but are looking for a little bit of help with a creative way to finance or get in and manage their closing costs. We look forward to helping you and want to help you close more loans. So if you know of somebody that needs our help, wants to talk about how to use gift funds or seller concessions, please send them our way. We're always here and happy to help.